Tucker Carlson appeared on the Full Send podcast last week and reflected on his career in the media, his biggest regrets as a newsman slash commentator, and how his views of his own industry have evolved over the years. And so you get a moment of introspection here from Tucker Carlson sitting in this low-budget podcast studio. This clip went pretty viral for what I feel is pretty good reason. So here we are. Let's take a look.
I've spent my whole life in the media. My dad was in the media. Like, that is a big part of the revelation that's changed my life, is the media are part of the control apparatus. Like, there's no... Yeah, I know. Because you're younger and smarter and you're like, yeah. But what if you're me and you spent your whole life in that world, and to look around and all of a sudden you're like, oh, wow. Not only are they part of the problem, but I spent most of my life being part of the problem, defending the Iraq War. Like, I actually did that. Can you imagine if you did that?
Well, what do you think? What is one of your biggest regrets in your career?
Oh, defending the Iraq War.
That is it?
Well, I've had a million regrets. Not being more skeptical, calling people names when I should have listened to what they were saying. Look, when someone makes a claim, there's only one question that's important at the very beginning, which is the claim true or not? So I say, you committed murder or you rigged the last election. Before you attack me as a crazy person for saying that, maybe you should explain whether you did it or not. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And for too long, I participated in the culture where I was like, anyone who thinks outside these pre-prescribed lanes is crazy, is a conspiracy theorist. And I just really regret that. I'm ashamed that I did that. And partly it was age, partly it was the world that I grew up in. So when you look at me and you're like, yeah, of course they're part of the means of control, I'm like, that's obvious to you because you're 28, but I just didn't see it at all. And I'm ashamed of that.
Isn't that what the media tries to do, though?
It's their only purpose.
Right.
They're not here to inform you. Really? Even on the big things that really matter, like the economy and war and COVID and like things that really matter that will affect you. No, their job is not to inform you. They are working for the small group of people who actually run the world. They're their servants. They're their Praetorian Guard. And we should treat them with maximum contempt because they have earned it.
There you have it. So that is obviously a level of introspection that you will not see from 999 out of 1,000 people in his field, which is mainstream corporate media. This is the first time we've really seen anything like that from any of these people, and could very well be the last time. What this, I think, goes back to, I mean, this hits on an idea that I had during the 2016 primary, and I think that was a turning point for Tucker as well. When you saw the manipulation of processes try and weed out candidates who the powers that be obviously did not want making it to any position of power, be it Sanders on the left or Trump on the right. You saw obviously a Stop Bernie movement on the Democratic side that succeeded, and then you saw the same sort of coordinated moves out in the open on the GOP side with the Stop Trump people. They went as far as to say, hey, if you live in Texas, vote for Cruz over Trump in the primary. If you live in Florida, vote for Rubio.
I remember that. Yeah, they just wanted to break up the vote. Yeah.
They just wanted to keep Trump under that majority threshold so that at the RNC they could give it to someone else if they wanted to. And what that suggested very strongly to me, and I think to a lot of people, including Tucker, is that there is, as he mentions, a group of people, a sort of bipartisan elite, whose goal is to control the boundaries of debate. And by controlling the boundaries of debate, they make whatever disagreements we have with each other out here irrelevant. So that's why when people criticize Tucker and they go after Tucker and they say, well, why would you platform Tucker? Why would you even do a segment like this that makes him look good? It's because I think what Tucker came to understand during that cycle is the same thing that I came to understand during that cycle, which is that, yes, he has a lot of views that I strongly disagree with. Before we can even get to a place where we hash those views out, we have to get to a place where those disagreements actually matter. Because as long as the debate is manipulated in the ways that he's talking about in that segment, whatever disagreements we have are irrelevant. It's just pro wrestling, right? We're just screaming at each other. Democrats who backed Bernie Sanders in 2016, who had been Democrats their whole life, thinking that Democrats actually wanted to achieve universal health care, we realized during that cycle that all of our talk about the need for universal health care was we were just talking to a wall the whole time. We were just screaming into the winds the whole time. We weren't actually talking to anybody. We weren't actually getting closer to achieving anything. Similar maneuvers were made, like I said, on the Republican side. And I think he came to that realization at the same time a lot of people did. And if you notice, his programming has been very different ever since. That's why he stands out. That's why he's number one in his time slot, not only among Republicans, by the way, but among Democrats as well.
Yes. Well, not only is he number one in that time slot among Democrats, he's number one among Democrats. More Democrats watch Tucker Carlson than watch any host on MSNBC. And this relates to what I was saying last week about DeSantis when I said there is this huge hidden Democrat vote for that kind of politics, and you could see that in the midterm results in Florida and all of the counties that DeSantis flipped. And it's yet another example like what we saw in the Twitter files, where the Republicans, if you time traveled somebody from 1974 to those Twitter hearings with Taibbi and Schellenberger, and you ask them, who are the Democrats and who are the Republicans? They would definitely think that Jordan was the Democrat and that Debbie Wasserman Schultz was the Republican, that Plaskett was the Republican.
Right.
So at that point, like, who do you side with? This is where it's very confusing. Anybody who is just going to come in and try to make it as simple as, oh, well, you're reinforcing Tucker. Well, yeah, come on, man. He's the only person with a prominent platform saying what he just said there. And as Keaton points out, if you can't get back the basics, a combative press that's actually informing the public, all these other things fall by the wayside. They don't matter. It's a very confusing time to be on the left, because most of the people who are advocating for meaningful structural changes, who are actually pointing out that the emperor has no clothes, are people whose views we don't really agree with otherwise, but we have a common cause with them in terms of social media censorship, in terms of how bad the corporate media is, in terms of how the press should function. And we don't have that with the establishment version of left.
Sure, because without overcoming those barriers, you're living in a world where your disagreements with Tucker may as well be, as I said, pro wrestling, because there is a bipartisan consensus that basically seeks to make politics run on a sort of autopilot, right?
Right.
No matter who wins, who loses, things more or less stay the same within this very narrow lane. Sometimes it veers a little to the left, sometimes it veers a little bit to the right, but the boundaries are in place right here. And no matter what happens, nothing is going to get outside of these. And so you have a political elite that wants, like I said, a sort of continued political stalemate. Right. And what they also want is a media apparatus that manufactures consent for that system.
Like that East Palestine article.
Of course, right, exactly.
That's what they want. Don't get stirred up. We've got it all under control.
Right. Absolutely.
Human sacrifice, dogs and cats living together, mass hysteria.
Exactly.
That's what we're living in. Everything is completely flipped. People who should be our natural enemies are more often articulating our views. It's just, it's craziness. I mean, that's why I'm not going to go out and vote for people like Ron DeSantis, but I'm not going to go out and vote for someone like Joe Biden either. I'm just not, I can't either way.